Happy New Year, elect leaders! As I've shared with you in the previous New Year's, the change from one year to another is merely an astronomical event. It is an external factor with very little impact on our personal lives. In fact, the pandemic has more impact on us than the change of the year from 2020 to 2021. The effect of this shift from one year to another is more psychological. Well, why not? I think it is good. In fact, every 7 days we have new starts. Every day can be a new start. The sunset finishes our day and the sun rises again, so we can have another opportunity to do things better. Therefore, we can start or restart things in our lives any time of the year. Now, many of us are really hoping for things to start changing for this new year, 2020. You see, there are things that we can control in our lives and there are those that we cannot. Many of those that we cannot control are the external events. Indeed, there are only a few people who create events for others. They are usually powerful people. They plan, they execute, they influence, they lead. They provide opportunities and jobs. People ride on what they build. Most of the things that we can control are the things that are within our hands, like personal discipline, fulfilling our duties and responsibilities at home, in our relationships, in school, at work, in the organizations we belong. However, 2020 was very different for all of us. It was a very difficult and challenging year. Perhaps many of us are facing 2021 with a handicap. Now, what is a handicap? Any disadvantage that makes success more difficult. Well, the more obvious example is physical ailment or disability. But some are unseen, like mental infliction or emotional weakness, perhaps oversensitivity. An economic situation like being so poor or marrying someone with so much debts, or who is a spender rather than a producer, or having a lazy family member. Being a victim of a tragedy like fire, floods, storm, infestation, pandemic, or extreme weather. Or being in a very bad environment in life, whether at home, at work, at school, or in a community. That is why some people move out to a better place with better people to interact. Some of these handicaps are self-inflicted. We did it to ourselves, like bad decisions or our carelessness. Some are caused by others on us. Of course, bad deeds or bad relationships or wrong relationships or meeting an accident. Some are born with handicaps, whether physical or internal, like mental or emotional. Some are temporary, some are lifelong. Some are lingering, some are recurring or seasonal. Some have learned to live with handicaps and have adjusted with the limitations they have. Some have lived defeated lives because they have surrendered their decisions to these handicaps. Well, some have discovered a divine purpose for having those handicaps. Some have gained strengths from handicaps. Some have used these handicaps as powerful tool to help those who are experiencing the same. Some hold on to their handicap for good or bad reasons, like controlling people, remaining dependent on others, or taking advantage of their situation. Some deny or do not see their handicaps. One surprising handicap is many possessions. The Lord Jesus said to this rich young ruler, Matthew 19 verse 22, "When the young man heard that, he went away grieving because he had many possessions. Jesus said to his disciples, 'Truly I tell you, it will be hard for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God.'" The rich young man needed to give up his many possessions in order to enter the kingdom of God. Today, I wish to help you how to start or restart with a handicap. I will draw some lessons from the life of Ruth. She's an Old Testament character. Let's see how bad her situation was and how the Lord raised her up, how He provided ways for her out of her tragedy and miserable situation, and even made her as the future grandmother of the king of Israel, David. Ruth discovered Yahweh, the one true God, from these refugees from Bethlehem, and have become a proselyte to the Israeli faith due to her marriage with Mahlon. That was the best decision she made. This led to other right decisions. After losing her husband, she stuck with her mother-in-law, Naomi. Well, that's rare. That was another correct major decision she made. The Lord provided her a way to get on top of her situation. The Book of Ruth is 4 chapters long. We will not go deep into the book. I will simply draw a couple of points from this book on how to rise above your handicap. Letter A, stick to the Lord no matter what. Life is difficult. The Lord does not always spare His children from going through the same bad situations that an ordinary person goes through in life here on earth. At times, He does. But most of the times, He wants us to face difficulties. He teaches us to trust Him. He reveals Himself to us so we can know Him better through those difficult moments. He empowers us to face trials and temptations. Then He makes us victors over hardships and sufferings. Some start or restart in a very privileged way. For example, you were born in a rich family or in a rich country, or you were loved and cared for by your parents, or you grew up in a safe environment, and so on. Some start or restart life in a relatively neutral condition, not too bad and fairly good environment. It is more difficult to start or restart life with a handicap, a very difficult situation like the case of Ruth. Think of prisoners who serve their sentence. How will society accept them back? Think of cancer survivors. They have spent so much money for their treatment. They have lost a lot of time recovering, which they could have used in being productive. How did Ruth rise above her handicap? Let's read Ruth chapter 1 verses 1 to 5. During the time of the judges, there was a famine in the land. A man left Bethlehem in Judah with his wife and 2 sons to stay in the territory of Moab for a while. The man's name was Elimelech, and his wife's name was Naomi. The names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They entered the fields of Moab and settled there. Naomi's husband Elimelech died, and she was left with her 2 sons. Her sons took Moabite women as their wives. One was named Orpah, and the second was named Ruth. After they lived in Moab for about 10 years, Mahlon and Chilion also died, and the woman was left without her 2 children and without her husband. Ruth may have found faith in the Lord by her marriage with Mahlon, but he died. Now, she may have cried out bitterly to the Lord for all the tragedies that befell her. She could have blamed these Ephrathites for the misfortunes she experienced. She may have thought that she should have married a fellow Moabite. We're not sure. The important thing here is even when Naomi was releasing her daughters-in-law to find another life apart from her, Ruth stayed with her. Verse 16, but Ruth replied, "Don't plead with me to abandon you or to return and not follow you. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord punish me, and do so severely, if anything but death separates you and me." When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped talking with her. The 2 of them traveled until they came to Bethlehem. The new challenge in her life was living as a widow and as a foreigner, an immigrant. Will the people accept her in Bethlehem, knowing that nothing legally ties her with Naomi anymore? But she was firm in her decision to become an Ephrathite or Bethlehemite. Ruth was from Moab, a country on the eastern side of the Jordan River. Her nation was always in conflict with Israel, even though they were distant cousins. Moab were the descendants of Lot, who was the nephew of Abraham. And we know that Abraham was the grandfather of Israel, or Jacob. Ruth could be seen as a parasite, a dependent. She could be seen as a mole or a spy or someone who had the ultimate goal of destroying them. This was her handicap, her ethnicity. Ruth was unfamiliar also with Bethlehem. This would be a cultural disadvantage for her. She needed to adjust to a new place and a new way of living. There was also the linguistic handicap. She needed to learn their language. And the religious ignorance. She needed to learn how religion was practiced in Israel. It was very easy for the people of Bethlehem to get rid of her. She may have been seen as an unwanted person. Worse, she could be deemed as bad luck. You know what I mean? As for Ruth, coming to Bethlehem with a handicap or a disadvantage was a challenge, but it was also a new beginning for her. Again, she was a widow. No, wives depended their future on their husbands. Becoming a widow was a terrible misfortune. She had nothing, no money, no land, no job, no profession, and no possession that she could use to restart life. Now, this is not just economical, it was also emotional. She lost her man, her love, her protection, her guidance. Worse, she was not able to give him a son or a daughter. That was heartbreaking. Now, I have enumerated her handicaps, but we need to look at her commitment in the verses we read above. The author made it so poetic. Remember, Naomi was hopeless and helpless, yet Ruth saw future with her. 4 things that we can see here. There was hope and future. Number 1, partnership with Naomi. Don't plead with me to abandon you or to return and not follow you. May the Lord punish me and do so severely if anything but death separates you and me. Her commitment with her mother-in-law was a commitment with God as well. Number 2, migration to Bethlehem. For wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you live, I will live. Wherever you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Moving to Bethlehem with her mother-in-law was a huge sacrifice for Ruth. Number 3, living with the people of God. Your people will be my people. Very good decision. Number 4, surrendering to God. And your God will be my God. May the Lord punish me and do so severely if anything but death separates you and me. She discovered that hope is in the God of Israel. Yes, they experienced famine, but she knew that it was only temporary. Famines don't last a lifetime. Moreover, famine, whether it was a punishment from the Lord or part of the natural cycle of life, does not divorce Israel from God. Number 1, trust the Lord. My friends, no matter what tragedies we go through in life, stick to the Lord. He remains to be the one and only true God. There is no hope apart from Him. Make this commitment with Him early. Do not forsake the Lord. Do not forsake the Church of God. Well, of course, you may transfer to another local church if necessary and for a good reason. In all these, stay faithful to the Lord. He is your hope. He is your future. He will carry you through the tragedies of life. He will sustain you. Number 2, adjust and be flexible. My friends, we cannot change many things in life. We have to accept the decision of the government to lock down our metropolis, while people in the provinces may have been living the normal way of life. Ruth adjusted to a new environment, new people, new culture, and new religion in Bethlehem. You have natural abilities to make adjustments. Non-believers can make adjustments. How much more for you? Filipino migrants are able to adjust when they move to another country. More than that, you have divine wisdom and spiritual power to help you make these adjustments. So stick to the Lord no matter what. Letter B, find God's will and way. As Ruth faced new challenges in life with handicaps, she needed the Lord's guidance to be able to rise above her handicaps. Chapter 2, verse 1. Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side. He was a prominent man of noble character from Elimelech's family. His name was Boaz. Ruth the Moabitess asked Naomi, "Will you let me go into the fields and gather fallen grains behind someone with whom I find favor?" Naomi answered her, "Go ahead, my daughter." So Ruth left and entered the field to gather grain behind the harvesters. She happened to be in the portion of the field belonging to Boaz, who was from Elimelech's family. Number 1, look for the favor of the Lord in opportunities with perseverance. Ruth wasn't lazy. She was not nitpicky, maarte in Filipino. She did not look to be so dependent on Naomi. The first thing she minded was to get a job, work, and earn. See the favor of the Lord? She got a job. And she was able to work with a very nice boss, a boss that loves his workers and blesses them. Verse 4, later when Boaz arrived from Bethlehem, he said to harvesters, "The Lord be with you." "The Lord bless you," they replied. What a good working relationship he had with his workers. Number 2, work hard and do not play politics at work. Agricultural job was not a problem for her. She could have taken a domestic job like a maid. She saw an opportunity to show how hardworking she was and how industrious she was by working in a field. She did not have to gain the favor of man by getting a job that is close to the boss. Boaz instantly noticed her. The Lord favored her by working hard, not by playing politics in the workplace. She did not ask for a better working condition. She just worked. Later in the story, the Lord will transfer her to a safer section of the workplace. Verse 5, Boaz asked his servant who was in charge of the harvesters, "Whose young woman is this?" The servant answered, "She is the young Moabite woman who returned with Naomi from the country of Moab." She asked, "Will you let me gather fallen grains among the bundles behind the harvesters?" She came and has been on her feet since early morning, except that she rested a little in the shelter. Number 3, remain humble when favored. See how the Lord favored Ruth here? Boaz separated her from the men and made her work with fellow women. Favor, privileges, and protection come from the Lord. Chapter 2 verse 8, Then Boaz said to Ruth, Listen, my daughter, don't go and gather grain in another field, and don't leave this one, but stay here close to my female servants. See which field they are harvesting and follow them. Haven't I ordered the young men not to touch you? When you are thirsty, go and drink from the jars the young men have filled. She fell face down, bowed to the ground, and said to him, Why have I found favor with you, so that you notice me, although I am a foreigner? Boaz answered, Everything you have done for your mother-in-law since your husband's death has fully been reported to me. How you have left your father and mother and your native land, and how you have come to a people you didn't previously know. May the Lord reward you for what you have done, and may you receive a full reward from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge. How did she show her humility? She accepted and acknowledged that she received favor not because she was deserving, but because the Lord, through Boaz, was gracious. Look again at verse 11, Everything you have done for your mother-in-law. Was Ruth gracious toward Naomi to gain favor for herself? No, she helped her mother-in-law out of her love for God and, of course, for her. Did she expect that her kindness would mean so much not just to Naomi but also to Boaz? Well, I think not. Naomi benefited from the sacrifice of Ruth, but not Boaz. Yet, Boaz was appreciative of her wonderful deeds, and so he blessed her. How did Ruth respond to Boaz? Verse 13, My Lord, she said, I have found favor with you, for you have comforted and encouraged your servant, although I am not like one of your female servants. Ruth did not fly high with this newfound favor that she received. She did not lift her head before her fellow servants. She did not dominate or play boss above them. She remained humble and overwhelmed by that favor. Where is the privilege part? It's here in the following verses. She was made to eat with her master with delicious and more than enough food to eat. Verse 14. At mealtime, Boaz told her, Come over here and have some bread and dip it in the vinegar sauce. So she sat beside the harvesters, and he offered her roasted grain. She ate and was satisfied and had some left over. About the protection, there's more. Verse 15. When she got up to gather grain, Boaz ordered his young men, Let her even gather grain among the bundles, and don't humiliate her. Pull out some stalks from the bundles for her and leave them for her to gather. Don't rebuke her. In other words, Boaz covered her with a special protection, knowing that she could be susceptible to abuse, whether by working hard or by sexual abuse from the men. My friends, let the Lord give you favors at work. At times, you may need first-class miracles. First-class miracles are supernatural acts of God. Second-class miracles are apparent circumstantial events, but they are too good to be true. But no need for supernatural things to happen. What happens is, the superintending hand of God was orchestrating things to happen in your favor to bless you and to protect you. In many cases, God does these second-class miracles around us, just like what we see here in the case of Ruth. The Lord was executing His plan for her. Things were falling in the right place at the right time for her. She was also falling into those right moments and places. Wow! Please the Lord, see how He blesses you. Remain humble, then the Lord's favor will overwhelm you with much more than what you can imagine. There are many other beautiful things that happened to Ruth, but let's get to the most exciting part. Little did Ruth know that Boaz was a relative. She may not even know this provision in the law of Moses about the kinsman redeemer, Leviticus 25 verses 47 to 55. We will not read that passage anymore. Basically, it says that the closest relative can redeem his relative's properties so it remains within the clan after they have been owned by someone else. In this case, Boaz can redeem Mahlon's widow by marrying her, and he will have the right to all of Elimelech's properties since he ran out of heirs. Number 4, ask, seek, and knock. To cut the long story short, Naomi devised a plan for Ruth in order to please Boaz into redeeming and eventually marrying her. She laid by Boaz's feet while he was asleep. When he woke up, he saw Ruth there. Ruth needed that courage to do what Naomi told her to do. It was risky since it could jeopardize the reputation of Boaz. She could be rejected. Yet she did everything right. Chapter 3 verse 9. So he asked, "Who are you?" "I am Ruth, your servant," she replied. "Take me under your wing, for you are a family redeemer." Ruth also needed courage to ask Boaz to redeem her. Verse 10. Then he said, "May the Lord bless you, my daughter. You have shown more kindness now than before, because you have not pursued younger men, whether rich or poor." Kindness is the very powerful virtue that Ruth had. Boaz recognized that Ruth was doing things the moral way. It is probable that Boaz was very old for Ruth, though it was not immoral for an old man to marry a younger woman as long as the lady is marriageable. Verse 11. "Now, don't be afraid, my daughter. I will do for you whatever you say, since all the people in my town know that you are a woman of noble character." See how Boaz praises Ruth for her character? She has become very well known in Bethlehem for her virtuousness. Are you a person of character? Does your virtuousness shine? You may not have done bad things, but if you are not doing something good, then you are not shining God's light. Verse 12. "Yes, it is true that I am a family redeemer, but there is a redeemer closer than I." Ouch, that sounds like the plan wasn't working. But Ruth was not discouraged. Boaz was doing the right thing. They must clear any hurdle before they can continue with the plan and reach their goal to be redeemed. Verse 13. "Stay here tonight, and in the morning, if he wants to redeem you, that's good. Let him redeem you. But if he doesn't want to redeem you, as the Lord lives, I will. Now lie down until morning." Boaz was not about to shortcut the process. He knew that the right way is always the best way. He was putting things in the hands of the Lord by letting a closer relative make the decision first. Are you open to another option? Will you keep your hope in the Lord even if it's someone else's decision? Naomi, Boaz, and Ruth did everything in a moral and legal way. Did Ruth ever imagine that there was an opportunity for her to be the wife of her master? Probably not, until she learned about the law. She did not lure him or used her charm or take advantage of the sleeping Boaz. She simply followed Naomi's advice. How about Boaz? He could have immediately owned her right there. Yet, he did not sexually take advantage of her. He decided to follow procedures. He respected the rights of other relatives who could have redeemed her. And so in chapter 4, they all went through the legal proceedings. Verse 1. Boaz went to the gate of the town and sat down there. Soon the family redeemer Boaz had spoken about came by. Boaz said, "Come over here and sit down." So he went over and sat down. Then Boaz took 10 men of the town's elders and said, "Sit here." And they sat down. He said to the redeemer, "Naomi, who has returned from the territory of Moab, is selling the portion of the field that belonged to our brother Elimelech. I thought I should inform you. Buy it back in the presence of those seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you want to redeem it, do it. But if you do not want to redeem it, tell me so that I will know, because there isn't any more other than you to redeem it, and I am next after you." "I want to redeem it," he answered. Now this was kind of a nervous moment for Naomi and Ruth. Were Boaz, Naomi, and Ruth disappointed at the response of the closer relative? The closer relative was willing to redeem it. Well, that was still good, was it not? They wished Boaz would be able to redeem Ruth. Now Boaz gave the caveat of the deal. Verse 5. Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the field from Naomi, you will acquire Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the deceased man, to perpetuate the man's name on his property." The Redeemer replied, "I can't redeem it myself, or I will ruin my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption because I can't redeem it." That was probably relieving for them. The refusal of the closer relative to redeem Ruth too was not a misfortune. It was a way for a better plan to be fulfilled. The closer relative surrendered his right to Boaz. Verse 8, so the Redeemer removed his sandal and said to Boaz, "Buy back the property yourself." Then came the good news. Boaz accepted the responsibility to redeem Ruth. Wait, what if Boaz had changed his mind right there, like a runaway groom? No, Boaz was a man of character. Verse 9, Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "You are witnesses today that I am buying from Naomi everything that belonged to Elimelech, Chilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow, as my wife to perpetuate the deceased man's name on his property, so that his name will not disappear among his relatives or from the gate of his hometown. You are witnesses today. Wow, that was as good as getting married on that very day. Naomi and Ruth must have been crying for the Lord's favor on them. Verse 11, all the people who were at the city gate, including the elders, said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is entering your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built the house of Israel. May you be powerful in Ephrathah and your name well known in Bethlehem. May your house become like the house of Perez, the son of Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring the Lord will give you by this young woman." If they did not follow this due process, they would not have received the blessing of God, of the elders, and of the people. So always do the right things the right way. Verse 13, Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife. He slept with her and the Lord granted conception to her and she gave birth to a son. The son was from the Lord. That guaranteed that their name would continue through generations. So Ruth was able to rise above her handicaps. Let her be find God's will and way. Look for the favor of the Lord in the opportunities with perseverance. Work hard and do not play politics at work. Remain humble when favored and ask, seek, and knock. My friends, always do the right thing. Do not go ahead of God. That will ruin you. Do not do the immoral thing. That will forfeit God's blessing for you. Follow the procedure and the process. Be patient when they are long and tedious. Wait for the right moment from the Lord and He will give you His blessings. If the Lord reserved that blessing from you, He will surely give it to you, not to someone else. Remember, Jacob stole the blessing from his brother Esau by deceiving his father Yitzhak. The Lord withheld it and eventually gave it to him when he became a changed man. Blessings comes to those who wait. Do you want to recover after losing much last year? The Lord is our Redeemer. He has a plan for us. We are not sure if somewhere within 2021, we will begin to rise up. Maybe 2021 is still a continuation of the difficulties of 2020. Maybe 2022 will be, quote, your migration to Bethlehem, end quote. It will be very different with you compared with your friend or your loved one. Do not fret. Do not be envious. Let the Lord work His plan on each one of us. We are in different phases and speed in His plan. Be patient. Have faith in God. Go through the process. Certainly, 2021 is part of that process. Maybe 2021 is the favor you have to do with your Naomi. The favor of God through your Boaz might be in 2022, if not this year, 2021. I don't know. God knows. Follow God's ways, then you will know what He has for you in 2021. If you don't follow His way, you will never know. Stick to the Lord no matter what. Find God's will and way. Thank you for joining me. Like and share our videos. Like our Facebook page, eLife Leadership Forum Incorporated, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'll see you again.